My name is Mabel Stokes. I am 67 years old. Last Easter Sunday, in my own dining room, my daughter-in-law interrupted the grace I have said at that table for 29 years so her mother could say it instead. She did it in front of 9 people. My son sat 6 feet away and watched it happen. And while every head in the room was bowed and Priscilla's mother was thanking God for the ham, my daughter-in-law leaned across me, slid a folded document under my left hand, and said 4 words near my ear that I have not stopped thinking about since. The print's too small. The number at the top of page 1 was $847,000. I did not say a word. I sat with my hands flat on the paper and let the prayer end without me. But what I did the following morning took 8 weeks to arrive anywhere that mattered. And when it finally mattered, it mattered in Courtroom 4 of the New Haven Superior Court, in front of a judge named the Honorable Francis Doyle, who asked me to read a document aloud into the record. Welcome back to Brave Mom Stories, the channel for women who were told they couldn't follow the fine print and kept reading anyway. Drop a comment and don't forget to subscribe. My husband Earl and I bought our house on Wethersfield Road in Guilford, Connecticut in the spring of 1991. We paid $178,000. Clapboard siding, 3 bedrooms, a sunroom that faced west, and a mortgage that made Earl lose sleep for the better part of a year. Earl was a mechanical engineer at a firm in New Haven for 31 years. I worked as a certified public accountant at the same practice in Branford from 1982 until I retired in June of 2019. 37 years. I did individual returns, small business taxes, estate planning, trust accounting. For the last 12 years, I ran the trust department. I reviewed documents that other people found unreadable and translated them, in plain language, into what they actually said. I will explain why that matters in a little while. Earl had his stroke in February of 2020. He was 68 years old. He died on a Wednesday afternoon with the television on and both of our hands on his right arm, mine and our son Dennis's. He was a quiet man who had strong opinions about the correct way to fold a roadmap and who cried exactly twice in the 41 years I knew him. Once at his mother's funeral, and once when Dennis called from the delivery room to say, "We had a granddaughter." I think about him every morning when I put my glasses on. He was the one who drove me to the ophthalmologist in 2019 when I finally admitted I was losing the center of my right eye, macular degeneration. Not the fast kind, the slow kind, which sounds like a mercy and mostly is, except that it means you spend years watching the world go soft by degrees and can never point to the exact moment it got worse. I have worn thick bifocals since 2019. The right lens is significantly stronger than the left. I cannot read small print in poor light without them. Everyone in my family knows this. My daughter-in-law, Priscilla, has known it since the October after Earl died, when she came to help me sort through his mail and said, in a very patient voice, "You just hand me the small stuff, Mom. Your eyes don't need the strain." She is 39. She manages the front office of an orthopedic practice in Madison, and she has a particular gift for making assistants sound indispensable. Dennis and Priscilla married in 2014. He runs a landscaping and lawn care company out of a yard off Route 77 in Branford. 12 employees in season, 3 year-round. He has always been better with people than with numbers, which I say not as a criticism, but because it is simply true. The same way it is true that I am better with numbers than with confrontation. We are well matched as a family, in exactly the wrong direction. In 2018, Earl and I sat down with our estate attorney, Agnes Rinaldi, who has kept an office above the hardware store on Whitfield Street in Guilford for 26 years. We set up a revocable living trust, the Stokes Family Trust. Earl and I were co-trustees and co-beneficiaries. Everything went into it. The house on Wethersfield Road, the joint brokerage account, the savings. The trust named Dennis as successor trustee, meaning he would take over management of our assets after both of us were gone, or if a licensed physician ever certified in writing that neither of us could make decisions for ourselves. Not before. Agnes was very clear about that. She read it aloud at the conference table, and Earl said, So Dennis can't touch it while you're still sharp, and Agnes said, "That's exactly right." I have known that document's terms by heart since the day we signed it. In May of 2021, I had cataract surgery on my left eye. The recovery was straightforward, but I could not drive for 3 weeks, and the eye drops made my hands unreliable. Priscilla came and helped me during that time, and I am grateful for that. It was during those 3 weeks that I signed a financial power of attorney naming Dennis as my agent. Agnes had drafted it. The document had a specific termination clause. It expired 60 days after the date of signing. That was my idea. Agnes called it a springing limited power of attorney and mentioned that most clients did not build in automatic expiration. I insisted. I had spent 37 years reading documents that people signed in moments of vulnerability and then never thought about again. 60 days felt like exactly the right amount of time to need help. Dennis and Priscilla did not know about the expiration clause, at least not until this past February. This is the part people never think to ask about, and it is the only part that matters. Go find your own documents. Read the termination section. I will wait. Priscilla's mother, Greta, is 64. She moved in with Dennis and Priscilla 18 months ago after her second divorce. She is cheerful in the way of people who have learned to make any room comfortable for themselves. She calls me Mabel and volunteers at church bingo, and she once told Priscilla's cousin that she considers herself the real grandma because she is there every single day. Priscilla's cousin relayed this to me at a birthday party, then looked embarrassed. I did not correct it. I want you to know I could have. It would have cost me one sentence. I have thought about that sentence a lot since then, and I will tell you exactly why I swallowed it. Last Easter, 9 people sat at my dining room table. Dennis and Priscilla, their daughter Sophie, who is 17, and their son Jake, who is 14. Greta, Priscilla's sister Vicky and Vicky's husband Ron. My neighbor Cora, who has come to Easter in this house for 11 years because her own children live in Phoenix and plane tickets cost what they cost. And me. Greta sat at the head of the table. That was Earl's chair. Earl has been gone 4 years, and for the first 2, the chair sat empty because nobody had the nerve to suggest otherwise. In 2022, Priscilla moved a place setting into it for Greta, and I said nothing. The reason I said nothing about the chair is the same reason I said nothing about the tablecloth. Priscilla brings from her own house because she prefers it to mine, and the centerpiece she replaced the year before last. And the fact that every Easter since 2021, she arrives at 8 in the morning and reorganizes my kitchen before I have finished my second cup of coffee. When someone does enough small things for you, it becomes very hard to say the word no without sounding ungrateful. That is exactly how it works. I understand it better now than I did then. I was put at the far end of the table, nearest the kitchen. It's easier for you to get up that way, Mom. I do not need to get up more frequently than anyone else. My eyes are the thing that don't work as they used to, not my legs. But the chair by the kitchen is 11 steps closer to the bathroom, and 2 steps from the counter where I keep my glasses case, so I accepted it the way I have accepted a lot of things. By deciding the arithmetic worked out in my favor. At about 2 o'clock, Priscilla stood and said that before we ate, she thought we should hear a blessing. She looked at Greta. I have said grace at this table since 1995. My mother taught me the words when I was small, and I have carried them for 40 years. I said them the Easter after Earl died, alone at this table with an empty chair across from me, and I kept my voice level the whole way through. Priscilla looked at Greta and not at me, and I understood what was happening 3 full seconds before it happened, long enough to decide to let it go. Greta's blessing was brief and pleasant. Everyone said amen, and while every head at the table was still bowed, I felt something slide under my left hand. A folded set of papers. Priscilla's hand covered mine for half a second, pressing it flat, and she said very quietly near my ear, "Don't worry about reading it now, Mom. The print is probably too small for you anyway. Dennis will explain everything later." Then she moved away and started passing the rolls. I kept my hand flat on the paper. I did not look at Dennis. I did not look at Priscilla. I looked at the ceramic centerpiece she had brought from her own house. something I had never seen before that morning. And I thought about what it had felt like when her hand pressed mine down. Gentle. Practiced, the way you press down a lid on something you would rather stayed closed. I want to be careful here, because this is the part people get wrong. I was not stunned. I was not humiliated into silence. I had sat across tables for 37 years from people who handed documents to other people and said, "Don't worry about reading this. I know exactly what that sentence is for. It is not for your benefit. It is for theirs." I put the papers in the pocket of my cardigan. I helped myself to the green beans. I ate Easter dinner at my own table in my late husband's house, and I did not say one word about what was in my pocket. The rest of dinner went the way those dinners go. Greta told a story about her years in Milford before the second divorce. The details shifted slightly from the last time I heard it, the way details do when a story has been told enough times to become comfortable. Vicky asked Sophie about her college applications. Dennis talked about a commercial landscaping contract he was bidding on in Madison. He mentioned it 3 times, which is one more time than a man mentions something when he is confident about it. He did not look at me once, between 2 o'clock and 5. Sophie cleared the plates and came back and stood beside my chair for a moment with her hand on the back of it. She is 17 years old, and she is going to be fine in this world. She did not say anything at first. She just stood there, and then she said, "You want me to put the kettle on?" I said, "Yes, please." It was the kindest thing anyone did that day. They left at 5:30. When the last car turned out of the driveway, I went back to the kitchen table, sat down under the good overhead light, and I unfolded the papers. It was not 1 page, it was 11. Amendment to the Stokes Family Trust, dated April 20th. The amendment proposed to add Dennis Stokes as co-trustee, effective immediately, with equal authority to manage, invest, sell, transfer, or encumber any trust asset without requiring the consent of the other trustee. Page 3 had a signature line and a date line. Page 8 was a cover letter explaining that the amendment would allow the family to better support Mabel in managing her estate. Page 9 was an asset schedule. The house on Wethersfield Road, listed at assessed value, $614,000. The brokerage account, $233,000. Total $847,000. I set my glasses down on the table. I picked them up again. I read the whole thing a second time, slower. The way I read things I want to be certain I have understood. Then I went to my bedroom closet and took down the gray accordion file I have kept on the shelf above the hanging rod since 1991. The Stokes Family Trust document is in the 3rd section, behind the orange tab. I found the page I needed in under 2 minutes. Section 12, Paragraph C. Any amendment to this trust shall require the written consent of the settlor, witnessed by 2 individuals who are neither beneficiaries nor trustees, and notarization by a licensed notary public. Any amendment shall further be reviewed by the settlor's designated attorney of record prior to execution. The Easter Amendment had no witness lines, no notary block, no indication that Agnes had reviewed it. I put both documents on the kitchen table side by side. I read Section 12, Paragraph C one more time out loud in the empty house, the way I used to read important clauses to Earl when I wanted to make sure I had understood them correctly. Then I got out my pen. I wrote 3 things in the margin of page 3 next to the signature line in blue ink in my own handwriting. I wrote the date. I wrote the time. And I wrote 2 words, "not signed." Then I put both documents back in the accordion file, set the file on the kitchen table where I would see it in the morning, and I went to bed. I have been writing the date and time on things since 1982. Old habit. My best habit. The Monday after Easter, I was at Agnes Rinaldi's office at 9 o'clock. She has practiced in Guilford for 26 years. Her office smells like old wood and coffee, and she keeps a ceramic frog on her desk that Earl gave her as a joke gift at our first meeting in 1994. It is still there. I put the Easter Amendment on her desk and the trust document beside it, and I said, "Tell me what I already know." She read for about 4 minutes. She took her glasses off. "This isn't valid." "I know that." "Mabel, Where did this come from? Under my hand at Easter dinner. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Do you want me to send a letter?" "Not yet," I said. "I need to know what happens next, all of it, every step." Here is what Agnes told me. The Stokes family trust was revocable, meaning I could amend or revoke it myself at any time with proper formalities. No one else could amend it during my lifetime without my valid, properly witnessed, notarized signature. The Easter document was not a valid amendment. It was a piece of paper. What concerned Agnes more was what it implied about what Dennis and Priscilla believed they already had. She asked whether I had signed anything else recently that I might want to review. I told her about the 2021 power of attorney. She pulled my file, read the termination clause, looked up at me. "They may not know it expired." "I think you're right," I said. "Do you want to confront them, or do you want to protect yourself first?" I told her what I wanted. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "All right, let's do it in the right order." The right order took 11 days. First, Agnes filed a trust amendment of my own, a real one, properly witnessed and notarized, confirming that I remained sole trustee and adding a clause requiring written notice to her office of any future amendment attempts. Filed with the county on April 28th. Second, I went to my bank and removed Dennis as an authorized user on my checking account. He had been added in 2021 during my recovery. I had meant to remove him then and had not gotten around to it. That is the one thing in this story I wish I had done differently. Third, I called Carmen Esteves, a certified financial planner in Branford who had never heard of me before that Monday. She is 54 and has an office on Main Street, and she charged me $1,200 for a full review of my trust assets and a 4-page written analysis. I paid from my own checking account and I kept the canceled check, because somebody always asks who paid. Carmen's letter is dated May 3rd. 2 sentences of it matter most. First, the assets of the Stokes family trust had a combined fair market value of $847,000 and were held solely under my authority as trustee. Second, the document dated April 20th did not conform to the amendment requirements of Section 12, paragraph C, and could not lawfully transfer any trustee authority. I put it in the accordion file behind the orange tab. On May 9th, Dennis came to the house at 7 in the evening without calling first. He stood in my kitchen with his jacket still on, which is what he does when he does not intend to stay long. "Mom, you need to sign the amendment. If something happens to you and you haven't signed it, we can't help you." "There is no emergency. Agnes is my attorney and she has not advised any of this." I asked him who had drafted the amendment. He said Priscilla had found a template online. I want to say something about that moment, because it is the one I return to most. My son is 42 years old. He is not a dishonest person by nature. He married a woman who is very persuasive, and his business is in trouble. I knew this before he told me, because I am his mother, and I have watched him carry worry since he was 8 years old and asked me if we were poor because we didn't have cable. He was not standing in my kitchen because he wanted to hurt me. He was there because someone had made the math seem simple and the cost of not acting seem larger than the cost of asking. That does not make it acceptable. I want to be clear about that too. I told him the amendment was not valid. I told him about Section 12, paragraph C. He said Priscilla had told him the trust was outdated and the new document superseded it. I said that is not how trusts work, and if a free online template had told him otherwise, the template was wrong. He said, "Mom, you're making this harder than it needs to be." I said, "No, I'm making it exactly as hard as it actually is." He left without sitting down. In the days that followed, Priscilla called me 14 times. I let every call go to voicemail. Each message was a slightly different version of the same message. They were trying to help. I was being stubborn. I was making things difficult for the family. We just want to make sure you're protected. On the 4th day, she added that Greta was worried about me too. I wrote down the date and time of each call. What I did not yet know, and learned the following week through a letter Agnes received from a law office in New Haven, was that Dennis and Priscilla had approached a private trust services company about liquidating the house. They had represented themselves as co-trustees of the Stokes Family Trust. They had gotten as far as an initial consultation and a preliminary asset valuation before the company's compliance department asked for documentation of the co-trustee authority. The only document they could provide was the Easter Amendment. No notary seal, no witness signatures. The company declined to proceed. Their attorney sent Agnes a letter informing her of this. Agnes sent me a copy. I read it at the kitchen table under the good lamp, said a word out loud that I will not repeat here, and wrote the date on my legal pad. Agnes filed a petition in Superior Court on May 22nd, seeking a declaratory judgment confirming that the Stokes Family Trust remained under my sole trustee authority and that the April 20th amendment was void. She said it was a clean case. She had filed messier things on a Tuesday and won by Thursday. I told her I wanted to be in the courtroom. She said I did not have to be. I said I wanted to be. The hearing was June 17th, 10 in the morning, Courtroom 4, 235 Church Street, New Haven. Agnes and I arrived at 9:40. The courtroom had pale green walls and a radiator that ticked even in June, and a clock above the door that ran 3 minutes fast. I know because I checked it against my watch when I sat down. Dennis and Priscilla came in at 9:55. Priscilla's attorney was a man named Gerard Finch, who had a rolling briefcase and the careful expression of someone managing a situation he already knew was difficult. At 9:47, Sophie sent me a text message. "Good luck, Grandma. I put your glasses case in your bag this morning when you weren't looking. I checked my purse. It was there." The Honorable Frances Doyle took the bench at 10:02. She moved through things in sequence, without drama, and she did not allow interruption. Attorney Finch presented his position. The amendment was a good faith document prepared to assist an aging parent. The family had concerns about Mabel's ability to manage complex assets. The intent had always been to ensure continuity. Judge Doyle listened. Then she turned to Agnes. Agnes handed up 3 documents: the original trust instrument, the April 20th amendment, the May 3rd filing confirming the amendment's invalidity. "Your Honor," Agnes said, Section 12, Paragraph C of the trust instrument specifies that any amendment requires 2 non-interested witnesses, notarization, and prior review by the settler's designated attorney. The April 20th document has none of those elements. Mrs. Stokes never executed a valid amendment of any kind, and she remains the sole trustee of this trust. Judge Doyle looked at both documents. Then she looked at me. "Mrs. Stokes, the document presented to you on April 20th. Did you sign it?" "No, Your Honor, I did not." "Can you tell the court how you received it?" "It was placed under my hand during Easter dinner at my home while the table was saying grace. My daughter-in-law told me the print was probably too small for me to read." "And did you read it?" "Yes, Your Honor. That evening at my kitchen table with my glasses on." "Your glasses!" She paused. "I understand you have a visual impairment." "Macular degeneration in my right eye, Your Honor. I have worn corrective lenses since 2019. I ran the trust accounting department at an accounting firm in Branford for 12 years. I have read a great many documents with these glasses on." From the second row, Priscilla said something to Dennis in a low voice. I did not turn around. "Attorney Finch," Judge Doyle said, "can you show me the notary seal on the April 20th amendment?" A pause. "Your Honor, the document was prepared as a draft." "Can you show me the notary seal?" "There isn't one, Your Honor." "Can you show me the witness signatures?" "There are none, Your Honor." "Then what we have," Judge Doyle said, "is a piece of paper." She set it down. "Mrs. Stokes, I'm going to ask you to read something into the record. Section 12, Paragraph C of your trust instrument." I found the page. I read it aloud. All of it. My voice was level. It has been level in difficult rooms before. When I finished, Attorney Finch asked to confer with his clients. Judge Doyle said he could confer where he stood. "Your Honor, We would ask the court to recognize the family's good intentions and allow a properly executed amendment to be prepared going forward. That is entirely within Mrs. Stokes's discretion, the judge said, if and when she chooses to execute one. What is not within anyone else's discretion is presenting an invalid document as a binding instrument. Mrs. Stokes, do you have anything further? Agnes handed up Carmen Esteves' letter. Your Honor, I retained a certified financial planner in May. Her letter confirms the asset values and the trust structure. I paid for her engagement myself. I have the canceled check. Judge Doyle read the letter, set it down. Then she looked at me once more. There is one more thing, I said. I reached into the accordion file Agnes had placed on the table. Behind the last divider, I had put something that was not a legal document and that Agnes did not know was there. I took it out and set it on the corner of the table. A pair of reading glasses, not the ones I was wearing. The first pair I had gotten after my diagnosis. Thicker lenses, a small scratch on the right corner from the afternoon in 2019, when I dropped them in the ophthalmologist's parking lot and Earl got out of the car and picked them up off the asphalt without saying a single word about it. Judge Doyle looked at the glasses. She looked at me. My daughter-in-law told me the print was probably too small for me, I said. I have worn reading glasses since 2019. I used them to review trust instruments, estate tax filings, and client correspondence every working day of my career for 12 years. These were the first pair. I kept them because some days a person needs to remember what she is capable of when others have assumed she is not. I did not say the other part. I did not have to. The room was already quiet. Dennis was looking at the table. Priscilla looked at her phone and then put it away. Judge Doyle took her own glasses off. The court finds that the Stokes Family Trust remains validly held under the sole trustee authority of Mabel Ann Stokes. The April 20th document is void. Any future attempt to represent otherwise to a financial institution or third party may be treated as misrepresentation of trustee authority. The Memorandum of Decision was issued June 24th. It is a public record. Agnes has a copy. I have a copy in the accordion file, behind the orange tab, where it belongs. Attorney Finch withdrew from the matter on June 28th. The Trust Services Company had already closed their file. Dennis called me on the morning of July 3rd. Not Priscilla. Dennis. He called at 8 in the morning, which is the time he calls when he has something to say and has been up since 5 thinking about how to say it. I answered. He did not apologize right away. He circled it the way he has always circled hard things, approaching from the outside first. He talked about the business. He talked about a contract he had lost. He said Priscilla had told him the trust was old and that it would be better for everyone if he could help manage things, and he had believed her because she had made it sound straightforward. I let him finish. I let him say all of it. Then I said, Dennis, was any of it your idea? A long silence. Some of it, he said. Mom, I was scared. I know, I said. I know that. We talked for 45 minutes. I will not tell you everything that passed between us. Some of it is his. What I will tell you is that I told him the business wasn't the kind of problem that my trust was going to solve, and that I loved him and always had, and that the door on Weathersfield Road was where it had always been. I meant every word. He came for the 4th of July. He came alone, and I did not comment on it. We sat in the sunroom and watched the neighbor kids light off bottle rockets in the cul-de-sac until it got dark. We did not talk about the court. We talked about Earl, mostly. Dennis has his father's laugh. I had almost forgotten that. Sophie texted the following week to ask if she could come visit. I said yes, and told her I would make the pot roast she liked. She arrived on a Saturday morning, drove herself, and did not tell her mother where she was going, which I will pretend I do not know. After we ate, she asked me to show her how to read a trust document. She said a friend's grandmother had lost her house, and she wanted to understand how it could happen. I got out the accordion file. I showed her Section 12, Paragraph C. I showed her what a notary seal looks like and where to find which signature lines and what it means when a document has neither. She asked good questions. She has her grandfather's way of asking the same thing twice, from a different angle, to make sure she has it right. Before she left, she picked up the old glasses from where I had set them on the kitchen counter. "Why do you keep these?" she said. "You don't even wear them anymore." I told her the same thing I will tell you now. For 37 years, I sat across tables from people who handed documents to other people and said, "Don't worry about reading this." Every single time, without exception, the person being told not to read was the one whose interests were most at stake. It was never a coincidence. It was never a kindness. It was a strategy, and it only works on people who believe they can't follow the fine print. The glasses are there to remind me that reading carefully is not a burden. It is the whole job. It is the only real protection any of us has. My name is Mabel Stokes. I am 67 years old. I ran the trust accounting department of a Branford CPA firm for 12 years. I have macular degeneration in my right eye, and I cannot read small print in poor light without my glasses. I read every word, and I kept every page. If you are listening to this in your own home right now, I want to ask you one favor. Go find the documents with your name on them. The trust, if you have one. The power of attorney, the bank accounts. Read the amendment section. Read the termination clause. Look for the paragraph that says what it takes to change things, because there is always a paragraph like that, and it is always the one that matters most. Drop a comment if you find something that surprises you. Subscribe if you want to hear what came next, and do not let anyone press your hand flat on a piece of paper and tell you the print is probably too small. It never is.